Welcome back to the Tia and Reese podcast. We really had a great time doing our first episode. Please like and subscribe. Leave your comments down there because we definitely want more information to keep adding to the list. But we had some interesting topics today. Tia, you want to lead us off?
Absolutely. And Reese, this is episode 3, by the way.
Is it?
It is. It is already. No, but so today we're going to talk about breadcrumbing and ghosting. Which I found to be a very interesting topic. I know y'all know what ghosting is, right? That's like the thing where, you meet somebody, they show interest. You might go on a date or two and then they disappear. Or maybe y'all been together for a year and they disappear, right? Ghosting. I didn't know what the hell breadcrumbing was.
I don't know what breadcrumbing is.
And that's a whole new term. Well, Reese,
hold on.
I had to look it up.
So is breadcrumbing like you kind of like spoon feed somebody or like just bring them along?
That's kind of what I thought.
Okay.
But after I looked it up, so breadcrumbing pretty much means is that like I am using a person only for what I can get. So I only come around when I want to deal with you. So it almost makes it feel like, okay, you're getting something from me, right? But like there's something missing. Well, I think we've all been a part of something like that, or we've done that to somebody where we just come around when we want, like if you just want to sleep with somebody, so you just come around for that. Or if you just want somebody for money, you just come around for that. But you don't come around for anything else. You don't go to events with them, or if you do, maybe within a 6-month period, you might go to maybe 2 or 3 events, but they think it's something more.
Wow. I would have never thought that's breadcrumbing meant.
I would have had no idea either. So I thought it was interesting when I looked it up. But tell me this, Reese, I have a question from a male perspective. Now that we know what breadcrumbing is, and we obviously know what ghosting is, let's start with breadcrumbing first, since it's a new thing for us. Why do you think somebody breadcrumbs from a man's perspective?
From a man's perspective, I think the breadcrumbing comes in when it's a interest only in that thing. So like, especially with men, I think if it's sexual, right, we're going to breadcrumb for the sex part, right? Like you were saying. And if not, then money or whatever. I think it's I think breadcrumbing is very selfish.
I agree.
I'm taking a lot of pause on it because I'm still digesting what breadcrumb is. But
right.
Yeah, I think it's a very selfish thing. And I think a lot of people sometimes can do things for a selfishness. So, yeah, that's what that sounds like. It's about me.
Right, that's a good point. And I apologize if y'all hear me coughing. I do have some allergies. But what I want to say is, I guess, that makes a lot of sense. Now, since you talked about it from that perspective, I want to talk about it from another perspective. Okay. So even as a woman, right, the reason why people accept breadcrumbing, so not being the person who breadcrumbs, but accepting it.
Right.
I think as women accept breadcrumbing because I can say, well, I don't feel alone. Or I can tell people, well, at least I got somebody. Even if I might see him once every month. Right. In my mind, I have somebody. Right. I'm not alone. You know what I'm saying? Right, so I think it is accepted. Breadcrumbing is accepted, and maybe from men as well because of insecurities. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because of insecurities. And I think, but as we continue and as we get smarter in this whole, just understanding love and love languages and all that stuff, I think we have to put ourselves first. And I think a lot of times we don't because we're trying to be so understanding and we're trying to have this, coping thing just to, I guess, help the person that you're dealing with. But essentially, are you helping them if you just are, if you're not really drawing some healthy boundaries? I think healthy boundaries in that space would cut that out, right?
That's true.
Because you wouldn't accept that, wait a minute, every time I see this person, it's only under these circumstances.
Right. That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So when the boundaries come in, right, now you get to see this person and who they really are. And now you have to make a decision too. Like I think selfishness is good sometimes. Like you have to be a little bit of selfishness. Have to have a little bit of selfishness, right? Because that makes you draw the boundaries. And it's like, okay, if you're only going to deal with me here, then that's my boundary.
Right. But a lot of people fear boundaries.
They do. But then but what's the flip side of that? What's the consequence of that, right? The consequence is like you're still left at the end of the day, maybe suffering or maybe finding out that, wow, this ain't what I thought. Right. I sacrificed and I gave. And I think that's where the anger comes from. And I think that's where you see women
Mm.
that just go off and maybe damage a car or damage a property, or somebody just has it's a temporary insanity, right? Because that's a thing. Because it's like, I sacrificed my boundaries and I sacrificed this thing so long for you, and this was who you was from the beginning.
Right.
So it's like, what it's a choice to be made. And I think choosing yourself is the ultimate, if you want to come out.
I mean, that's true. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, on the flip side of that, you got ghosting.
Ghosting.
We both know what ghosting is.
Yeah.
So obviously, for those of you who don't know, ghosting is where you're good with somebody, you're in a relationship or situationship nowadays, where things are going well, y'all going out. There's no breadcrumbing. Like, you see this person a lot. You're spending that time. And actually, I take it back. It can happen in breadcrumbing too. But we'll talk about real relationships and situations. You're having a good time, things are going well, and all of a sudden you don't hear from that person. That's what we call ghosting. What's your take on ghosting?
I think ghosting is the same. I mean, I think ghosting comes from maybe drawing a boundary. And so now the person just like, you know what? I can't bring this behavior here. So it's nothing I can get from this person. So
okay, poof. So I have a question. You can ask me the same. Have you ever ghosted someone?
I have.
Okay.
I have ghosted. Because honestly, it was very petty, to be honest. Maybe I thought I could, grow feelings or grow a mutual like. And I realized over time that I couldn't. And so it was hard for me to say, because they may have been a great person.
Right.
Was a great person, but it was hard for me to say, like, okay, I'm not really that into you, but I do like, what we have. So how do you do that? Because sometimes you just don't want to break that person's heart. You don't want to break that person's feeling. A lot of times being a good person and caring about someone's feelings leads you to honestly look like the bad person.
That's true.
Because some things you should just say, go ahead and cut it out now, versus then kick the ball down the road.
Right. I mean, I agree. I think for me, I've ghosted individuals, but it probably more so, and maybe I can speak for other women. A lot of times we ghost because everybody's it's attraction, and sometimes I think we as women, I could be wrong for some other people, but we're a little bit more open to talking to people that maybe we're not as attracted to, or there's something about them, but we're looking at it like, okay, maybe this could change, different things like that. And then when you start to get to see this person, you're like, you know what, this person is just not for me. And I think it's like you said, you don't want to hurt their feelings. So rather than make a show out of it, we just kind of just exit out of the situation. And I think that's ghosting. I think it's two things. You either have an individual who, like you said, is selfish, right? Or you just have somebody who just does not have the heart to tell the person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think a lot of it for me is that I just didn't have the heart, because I don't like to hurt people. I have such a heart for people.
Yeah.
And to think that I am the cause of hurting you within itself hurts. But then, to break it down and look at it, that's selfish too, right? Yeah. Because I'm taking on, I'm putting my hurt over top of hurting them, right? Yeah. So it's like, people are resilient if you give them the truth. And I find that people ultimately respect you in the long run if you give them the truth. They may not like it, but they will respect it later on after the healing sets in.
Right. But make sure you get to know that person, because not everybody's the same.
Yeah, that's a fact. Some people can flip out.
Right. They sure can. Yeah. So you just got to make sure you know the person and make sure that they are capable of handling the truth, because some people just flat out aren't, so we're not trying to put it out there that just be truthful to everybody. And unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it's the truth. Some people will take it the other way. That's why you even have some people that are not here today. Yeah. Because they were truthful. So you just got to know how to read that person. But just an interesting take. Anything else you wanted to add on the ghosting and the breadcrumbing?
No, I'm still honestly wrapping my mind around the
breadcrumbing, right? Yeah.
Like, wow. But yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, so let me ask you, just how would one just outside of the boundaries that we spoke about, would you think of anything else that could be set in place to, maybe help the people out here identify breadcrumbing and maybe some things, some tactics they can do for breadcrumbing?
I mean, well, that's really hard because it depends on the person. But I think a couple of things, and you can actually help me with this. But one of the things I will say with breadcrumbing is that you notice that this person's always coming to you for the same thing. You get the late night booty calls, for sex, or you'll get a phone call in the middle of the day saying, "I need $50." That kind of thing lets you know that this person's breadcrumbing. Or they'll hang with you, but only under certain conditions. Or you might see them every so often, maybe every couple of months, every couple of weeks, but they're not willing to put in the time to be with you in a healthy relationship. I think those are signs that it's breadcrumbing. As far as what you can do in terms of um, working to kind of work through it and maybe not allow that to happen in your life, that's pretty hard to say, Reese. The only thing I can think about with that is that it's all about it's confidence, really.
Right.
It's about healing, and it's about being a confident person and knowing what you will and will not tolerate. And again, that just goes back to the boundaries that you discussed. So I think it all just revolves around boundaries and confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Boundary and confidence. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, I definitely, I think this is a very hot topic. We probably should dive in on another episode about it, because I do believe that people are really, what's the word I want to use? I think people really are just suffering with putting themselves on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
I think in somewhat, especially in the Black community, like we kind of thrive off of, I put myself on the back burner, and I'm sacrificing this thing, but it's like, what is it? Is it a facade?
Right. Well, that's one of the things I always tell my clients too, is to make yourself a priority. No matter if you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a wife, you're a girlfriend, boyfriend, uncle, aunt, niece, whatever. You need to still make yourself a priority. And I think that you're right. That is the problem that I notice with a lot of my cultural clients. I'll say, I'm not even going to say racist, but uh, for my clients of different ethnicities, especially people of color, they do not put themselves first at times. And I think you're absolutely right. That is a struggle that people continue to struggle with. And I'm not quite sure when or how that's going to change, or if that's ever going to change, because I think it's ingrained.
It is ingrained. I think it's honestly, I don't know if control, and maybe you can correct me, but I feel like it's almost like a control. I feel like to some degree that people are controlled by their group, by their tribe. If you're, if you're Asian, right? Asians have certain beliefs that you are now controlled by. And if you're, Mexican, same thing. We can go to every culture that, we don't do this here.
Right.
Whatever this may be, we don't do that in this culture. And so as you grow older, and it's like, with the Black community, I'm speaking of that because that's me. It's like, support your man, don't leave him here. Men do this, men do that. And in our culture, I just believe that's one of the things that the Black woman does a lot, is put herself on the back burner and take a lot of stuff.
I agree. And I'm going to chime in real quick, because I don't think it's just your man. I mean, I think it's your grandparents if they're struggling, or your aunt or uncles, or, it's almost like put yourself on the back burner for everybody who is not doing as well as you.
Yeah. And where do you draw the line at, right? Where is it? Is it like a survival remorse type of thing? Or what is that?
That's true. I think a lot of people struggle with the guilt of putting themselves first because of those beliefs and the way that they were raised and the way they grew up. It's a big deal. It really is. And like I said, I don't know when I'm not saying it can't change, just don't know when it's going to change, or if it'll even change in our lifetime. Now, I do notice that younger people are putting themselves first.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. My fear is that could get to a point where it becomes selfishness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I see that selfishness.
Yes.
But I know this may be a little off topic for a second, but I know, like, with my son, right? I personally tell him no sometimes. Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Just because I feel like we're the dynamics have changed, whereas like a lot of life lessons we have learned was maybe because our parents couldn't.
Right.
I feel like now that,
we
a
can.
lot of us are in a great position where we can,
Right.
and the kid doesn't feel like, he never feels those no's. I was watching the episode. I was watching this thing with Michelle Obama, and she was talking to Kelly Rowland. Kelly Rowland.
I was about to say, who is Kelly Rowland?
I'm sorry, Kelly Rowland. And sorry, Kelly Rowland, if you ever slide past this, apologize. Definitely know who you are. But she was speaking about your kids should have their first, begrudals basically home. They should have their first no's, their first, getting over things home, because they have to know how to cope with that outside of home, right? And so I think, just to go back to the original topic, it's like, yes, you have to choose yourself, but it has to be a balance where you have to have those no's as a child, and you have to know how to pick yourself, when to be selfish, when not to be selfish. It's a balance. It's a yin and a yang.
But you know what? That's not off topic, Reese, because a lot of kids nowadays, like you said, don't hear the word no. They have this princess and prince syndrome.
Yeah.
And so they think that everybody's supposed to be at their beck and call, hence why you have those types of people who become the breadcrumbers. They become the ghosters. I'm not getting what I want. I can get whatever I want from you, because that's what I've always gotten from my parents. So it actually all ties in, and it all makes sense. Yeah. So
okay.
Very interesting topic, though. I think you're right. I think we should absolutely talk about this again. Yeah. And maybe one day we'll just have people call in and they can tell us about their situations of breadcrumbing and ghosting.
Please leave your comments, because we definitely would like to know the opinions of you guys out there. I do feel like this is a hot topic, but with more content from you guys, we could probably just dive in it a little deeper.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid also in the comments to share what you guys want to hear. What are some situations in relationships, situationships, or whatever, what have you, that you guys struggle with that you'd like us to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So is there anything else? Like,
I think we're good. I think we're good for today.
All right. Well, listen, till next time, y'all be blessed, and we'll see you on the next one.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Peace.
Peace.